everybody. Welcome to the Way of Life Big Book Study. I'm Dave, and I'm a recovered alcoholic.
And my name is Blythe, and I'm a gratefully recovered alcoholic.
We're going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. Thank you. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Somebody has the preamble in front of them.
Yeah, I got it.
Sweet.
My name is Charity, and I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Hi, Charity.
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organizations, or institution. Does not wish to engage any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thanks, Charity.
Awesome, thank you. And you know someone's got the old set-aside prayer in front of them somewhere.
I think it's you, Bob.
Well, beside me over here. Hi friends, my name is Bob. I am an alcoholic.
Hi, Bob.
Set aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, the 12 steps, this book, the meeting, my disease, and you. God, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth.
Thanks, Bob.
Great. So at this meeting, Blythe and I are going to read and explain the first portion of the big book, which is our program. There's going to be time at the end for questions and comments and sharing and all of that stuff. There's pens and paper. If you think of questions, write them down and ask them at the end. Highlighters for your book if something jumps off the pages at you. And we're going to get started here. First, I think, though, we'll do a really super brief catch up for anybody that's new here.
Sure. Once again, good evening, friends. My name is Blythe. I'm an alcoholic. We're on chapter 5 in the book, right? So there's a lot of ground that we've covered so far. So anybody new, the introduction, which is the forewords and the preface and the title page and the doctor's opinion, plus the first 3 chapters are all about step 1, or this education on alcoholism, what it means to be an alcoholic. When I came in the rooms, if you were to ask me what it means to be an alcoholic, I would have said I drank too much. But there's so much more to it than that. And so we went through all that. 2 symptoms of alcoholism: an allergy, phenomenon of craving, that when I have one, I don't stop. A normal drinker can have 1 or 2 drinks, shut her down, and go home. And that is beyond my comprehension. A second symptom, this malady that centers in my mind, is why I kept picking up that first drink, when I would promise myself and others that I wasn't going to do it anymore. And that's the main problem of the alcoholic, centers in our mind, this malady that keeps me picking up that first drink. I had an obsession for 20 years that I could drink like normal people, or that I could stop on my own power. And my history demonstrates my complete inability to do that. So we get a sponsor and we get into this book. In the first few chapters, we smash that obsession that I can drink like other people, right? So just like if I were to pick up a porcelain plate and smash it on the floor, that's what I do with my thought pattern that, I can do this myself. I can't, right? My history demonstrates that. We got into the agnostics, which is kind of basically based on step 2, this idea of coming to believe in a power greater than ourselves. It doesn't say come to believe, it says came to believe. So it's a process over time, right? And all the book asks us for step 2 is to be willing to believe that something out there is greater than me that can help me stay sober. And it talks a lot about prejudices, my old ideas, the way that I viewed the world, the way that I did things, didn't work. So it's time to start coming up with some new ideas. We're going to get into how it works. Page 58. So the thing about how it works, I promised last week, I said I'm going to read how it works like you guys have never heard it before. And that's my intention. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about how it works. So you'll notice I explained already step 1 and step 2. Briefly. Of course, there's much more to it than that. But we read how it works at every meeting to the newcomer, expecting him to know what step 1 and step 2 are. Because this is step 3 literature. Isn't it? Right? How is he supposed to know that he's powerless over alcohol when we're starting to talk about God already? Right? This step 1 experience that I'm screwed. I can't do this on my own, and I'm going to continue to pick up that first drink until it kills me. We're not talking about that in how it works. I mean, we touch on it, but nothing near like those first few chapters of the book. So even though it's read at every meeting, it's almost like it's treated like it's step 1 material, and it isn't. Right? Most read, least understood reading in Alcoholics Anonymous. We're going to get into it. Yeah.
Okay, so page 58.
So anytime the book uses the word we, it's talking about the first 100 members who wrote the book. 100 people got together in 1935 and wrote this book and published it in 1939. So anytime it's the story of how they recovered from alcoholism. It's like an instruction manual. So try to look at it from the perspective of them explaining to you how they did it.
So this first bit should sound pretty familiar. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path.
So, it says we. It's talking about the first 100 members. They're saying, rarely have they seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed their path. This is World War I language, where in a land mine area, one person would walk through, flag it, and come back, and the rest of people would follow the path. Right? If you don't follow the path in a minefield, what happens? You're dead. What happens with alcoholism if you don't follow the path? You're dead.
You drink, and to drink is to die, right? Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program.
So I call these the will nots and the can nots. Most of us are will nots.
Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty.
So we're talking about grasping and developing a manner of living. We're not just talking about going through these steps, closing the book and going, done. Right? Step 11 is all about applying these principles into my life from here and forever.
Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest.
So it mentions the word honest like 3 or 4 times in that paragraph. What do you think you have to be?
Honest.
Yeah.
Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now.
Interesting. That's what their stories are about. The stories are in the back of the book for what we call the fellowship. Difference between the fellowship and the program. The program's in this book. The fellowship is the meetings. And also the stories in the back of the book. Right? You often hear people referring to the program as the stories. Well, it says in the story, well, it's a story. It's not the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Page 417, all that kind of stuff. But so they talk about what they used to be like. Inability to stay sober. What happened? A spiritual experience. And what they're like now. The effect of that on their lives. That's what I try to go to a meeting and share.
If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it.
The any length to get it means the instructions in the first portion of this volume. If you have someone telling you to do anything else, ask them, where's that in the book?
Then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these steps we balked, thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not.
Through our experience, right, of thousands of alcoholics throughout history, trying to find easier, softer ways to get sober, what happens? We die alcoholic deaths.
Yeah, how many people, including myself, walk in here, read the steps, and go, I'm not fucking doing that. And then we hear, oh, just come to meetings and don't drink in between. You go, yeah, I'll do that. Right? Well, I do the steps, but I can do that. But it turns out I'm an alcoholic. I can't do that. And it almost killed me, actually. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start.
So once again, anytime the book says we, it's talking about the first 100 members who wrote this book. It's a collective agreement, right? It's a full collective agreement. So there's 100 people saying right here, with all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. We beg of you.
And being fearless isn't lacking fear, it's having the courage to face it and walk through it. Some of us tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely.
Right, so we try to hold on to our old ideas. I like to think that I know how to live my life successfully, but when I look at my history, do I? Not particularly. I get drunk, right? So our old ideas, the result was nil. We get loaded.
Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful.
So what's the most important word in that sentence?
Powerful.
Nope.
Baffling.
Nope.
Cunning.
Nope.
Remember.
Yeah!
Remember.
So that's right. So when we're dealing with this second symptom of my complete inability to stay away from that first drink, how important is it that I remember? Right? Remember, you don't remember?
Wait, what? Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing.
100% or get loaded.
We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon.
So that's really what step 3 is all about. I love that stuff. And we're at this turning point, right? We've learned what it means to be alcoholic. We've learned of the 2 symptoms. And now we're at this turning point where are we going to go through with this idea? Step 3 is an idea that this power can help us. If we go through the process of the rest of the steps.
Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery.
So if you're out looking for a program of recovery, this is what we suggest.
Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Just a note on the top of page 59, it says, without help, it is too much for us. So what is the is in that sentence? Alcoholism. Without help, alcoholism is too much for us. Right? There's that leaning back onto the first step and this powerlessness and the idea that, well, not the idea, but the fact that I can't stay away from this on my own. I can stay sober for weeks or months, but I always end up with that drink in my hand again.
Many of us...
sorry, one step. Sorry. And the other thing I want to point out is in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, do you have to believe in God or have God in your life in step 1 or 2? No. This is the horse and buggy to the spiritual awakening. Right? I hear it all the time where it's like, oh, you can't move on to step 3 until you believe in God. And like I said before, it's just the willingness to be willing to believe in something can be greater than you that's going to solve your problem. It says we tried to carry this message to alcoholics. Did it say we talk about the parking or babysitting or traffic in meetings? No, it says we try to carry this message. This is the message that needs to be carried in Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is the reason why I do this thing.
We ready?
Yeah.
Oh.
Here we go. I'm fired up today. I'm fired up.
Many of us exclaimed,
What an order!
I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles.
We all fail.
We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines.
There it is. We kind of breeze over this. At every meeting we hear this, right? The point is that we're willing to believe. Like, put some oomph into it, man. The point is, the point of this thing is to be willing to grow along spiritual lines, right? I'm either moving away from this power or I'm moving toward it. If I'm moving away from it, what happens? I get loaded.
Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection.
Right? I love this one. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Hear it all the time, right? Oh, progress, not perfection. I'm still at home kicking my dog and beating my wife. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about spiritual growth, prayer, meditation, helping others. Carry on.
Yeah, you shouldn't kick your dog.
Don't kick your dog or beat your wife.
Yeah, that's obvious.
Or beat on your wife.
Yeah, those two things are obvious. Our description of the alcoholic.
So that is step one, this learning about the illness, right? That I have this allergy or phenomenon of craving, that when I have one I can't stop, and that I have this state of mind, mental malady, where I can't stay away from it, right? That's the description of the alcoholic.
So we're basically up to this point, right? Mm-hmm. Our description of the alcoholic. The chapter 2, the agnostic.
So there's a chapter called We Agnostics.
And our personal adventures before and after make it clear 3 pertinent ideas.
Personal adventures before and after what? A spiritual experience as the result of working these steps. A.
That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives.
We tend to make the separation between an unmanageable life and powerless over alcohol, don't we? My life is unmanageable because I'm powerless over alcohol. I can't stay away from that first drink. I keep getting loaded. Of course my life is unmanageable.
B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism.
Up to this point, it's all about the inability to stay away from it, right? And that no human power is going to help me. If I can't keep myself sober, who's going to?
C, that God could and would if he were sought. Being convinced we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our lives over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that? And just what do we do?
So in italics, anything in italics is very important. It says we were at step 3. Who was at step 3?
100.
The first 100 members. So they were at step 3. They're going to explain just what they mean and just what they do. Right? Right. Here we go.
The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success.
My way does not work.
On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or someone, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion.
I didn't think I needed a God to survive.
Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way.
I love how it works. It kind of beats you up a little bit. I was definitely this actor, right? Always trying to make this happen or do this or manipulate that, right? If everybody would just behave. Carry on. Sorry.
If his arrangements would only stay put. If only people would do as he wished, the show would be great.
It'd be fantastic. Just do what I want.
Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous.
Especially if he's getting his own way.
He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand,
When he's not getting his way.
he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But, as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? Well, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes, on the next occasion, still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind?
I like to use the example, I would help you move as long as there was a case of beer at the end of it.
Is he not a victim of the delusion
Lie.
that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only he manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony?
So our actor, trying to be the director, right, making things his own way, becomes a producer of confusion. And that was me for a long time, trying to get my way. And we're not really even talking about alcoholism here, are we? Right? We're talking about the human condition, which is not a symptom of alcoholism. It talks about it further in how it works. It mentions a spiritual malady that is not the malady that centers in my mind. It is this spiritual malady. It's this human condition. I have a question for you. Do you have to be an alcoholic to be an asshole? No! Right? That's the spiritual malady we're talking about. Right? It's the human condition. Every human on the planet has it.
Yeah, the bottom of the top paragraph on 61, right? It says, but, as with most humans.
As with most humans, yeah. And it says here, most people try to live by self-propulsion, right?
Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He's like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation.
Blaming.
The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century.
Resentment.
Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him. And the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations,
is or is not the case,
are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, and our self-pity.
Right? So like I say, once again, this human condition, every human on the planet has it, right? Aren't we concerned with ourselves, our resentments, and our self-pity? Agreed?
Selfishness.
There it is.
Self-centeredness. That, we think, is the root of our trouble.
The root of our troubles. That word is carefully selected, right? Deep and strong. You can't just pull up a tree because it's roots, right? This is the deep-seated stuff.
Driven by 100 forms, fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity.
That's 400 versions of self. Me, 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 me.
We step on the toes of our fellows, and they retaliate.
I didn't notice that, did I?
Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation. But we inevitably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based off self, which later place us in a position to be hurt. So, our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making.
I remember reading this with my first sponsor. We're like, yeah, this is right, man. I just got to be a better person. But the truth of the matter is that I have about as much control over being a better person as I do over my alcoholism. I don't have the ability to do that on my own. I've tried hundreds of times.
They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self will run riot.
Right? That human condition that we talk about, alcoholics, extreme example of that.
Though, none of us really usually think so, do we? I sure didn't.
Nope.
Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us.
Exclamation point.
Who makes that possible?
Big guy.
God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to.
I remember when I was trying, for years I was trying to get sober, and I would look up to people like colleagues and stuff like this who were sober and had happy families and nice houses and drove nice cars. I was like, I'm just going to try to be like them, because if I do that, then I'm going to get what they got. But my selfishness is rooted so deeply that I don't have the ability to do that. I don't have the ability to change like that. Right? It doesn't work like that. I need a power, and I need power for this stuff.
Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We have to have God's help.
Right, there it is again, our own power. Right, I lack power. In the previous pages, we talked about this lack of power being our dilemma. Right, that's our problem. Is that we need to find this power. We need power. So we look for a power greater than ourselves, and we find it in these pages. We don't have to go to the ends of the earth for it.
This is the how and the why of it.
So first paragraph's the how, second paragraph's the why.
First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work.
Period.
It didn't work.
Didn't work. Doesn't work.
Period.
Next,
we decided that hereafter, in this drama of life, God was going to be our director.
So we decided, right? What does steps 3 say? Made a decision, right? So what did they do? They made a decision. They decided that God is going to be their director, right? Instead of me trying to manipulate things, I'm going to let Big Guy do it. Pretty basic ideas, pretty simple.
Because God is the principal. We are his agents. He is the Father and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple. In this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we pass to freedom.
Right, so we talk a lot about in the fellowship about letting go, right? Letting go of my stuff to God, right? All this stuff. Letting God be the director rather than me trying to manipulate everything. Right? The keystone, so that we're building a spiritual arch, like an arch in a church window, like an arch. We talked about the cornerstone already. It's this willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, right? That's just absolutely necessity, but it comes easily when we see our powerlessness, right? Knowing that I'm going to fucking die an alcoholic death if I don't find a power helps me start looking for this power. Right? So the cornerstone is this willingness. The keystone is the top stone of an arch, right? Where if you pull out the top stone, this thing crumbles down and we drink and die.
It also holds the arch in place, right?
Yes. Top of 63.
Yeah. When we sincerely took such a position...
What position is that? That God is going to be our director. This is the why.
All sorts of remarkable things followed.
Cool. Now we're getting some promises.
We had a new employer, being all-powerful. He provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well.
On a personal level, I can't tell you the amount of gifts that I've received as letting God be the director and going through the process of these steps. He does provide what I need if I keep close to him and perform his work well. My previous job was given to me as a result of sponsorship, all this kinds of stuff, man. It's all about that keystone.
Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life.
That's a big dynamic shift for me, right? I was a taker, and I was a taker, and now I'm starting to give.
Phrasing. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn. We were now at step 3.
Right. So the first 2 pages or whatever it is explaining that process of step 3, and then we're going to.
Let's wrap it up.
we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah. I think that's a good spot to leave it up, right?
Step 3 prayer.
Yeah.
After the prayer.
You want to do it after the prayer? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So here's the thing about this prayer, okay?
Group conscience.
If you've already like been through the first couple chapters, right? This prayer, it's a light switch, man. We're just going to hit this light switch, and amazing things are going to happen in our lives. It's really simple. Cool, right? Here we go.
Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me, and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Keep going. Finish down to the bottom of the page.
We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him.
So, I love the language in this paragraph. At last, abandon ourselves. Does it say surrender anywhere in here? Nope. It's about abandoning ourselves. If I'm in a sinking ship, what am I going to do? Abandon it, right? Is there any getting back on the ship? No, it's at the bottom of the ocean floor. That's my old way, man. Like I said, this light switch hits, man. And so it's about abandoning ourselves, not surrender. Carry on.
We found it very desirable to take the spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea.
Idea, again, step 3, an idea.
Voicing it without reservation.
Right? God, I offer myself to you.
This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once.
Right? I took people through this book and they do this 3rd step prayer, give them a few minutes on their own to do this thing, and they'll call me on their drive home. They're like, man, something's happening. Like, yeah, cool, right? So, yeah.
So that's step 3.
That's step 3. We'll shut her down there.